For my 32nd birthday, I rented a beach house, stocked the fridge, and sent invites weeks in advance. No one came. 3 days later, my brother posted, "Family weekend vibes." At a beach 2 hours away. I remained silent. I just stopped paying Dad's mortgage, Mom's SUV lease, and the business loan they all forgot I co-signed. That night, Dad texted, "Did something happen?" I responded, "Yeah, I finally took the hint." I, 32M, thought I had planned the perfect birthday celebration. I'd spent weeks organizing everything down to the last detail, booking a beautiful beach house with panoramic ocean views, stocking the fridge with everyone's favorite foods and drinks, and sending out invitations well in advance. I was excited to finally bring everyone together for a weekend that would create lasting memories. The rental cost me nearly $2,000, but I didn't mind. Family was worth it. I'd specifically chosen a place large enough for my parents, my brother and his wife, my sister and her boyfriend, and a few close relatives. I even made sure to pick dates that worked for everyone's schedules, sending multiple follow-up messages to confirm attendance. Everyone had responded positively, saying they wouldn't miss it for the world. Friday afternoon arrived, and I drove to the beach house with a car full of groceries and decorations. The place was even more stunning than the photos had shown, with a wraparound deck overlooking the waves and enough space for everyone to spread out comfortably. I spent the evening preparing, setting up games, arranging the food, and making sure every detail was perfect. My excitement was almost childlike as I imagined everyone arriving the next morning. Saturday morning came and went. No one showed up. I kept checking my phone, thinking maybe people were running late or had gotten lost. I called my brother first, but it went straight to voicemail. Same with my sister. My parents' phones rang, but no one answered. By noon, the sinking feeling in my stomach had grown into something much worse. I tried texting the group chat I'd created for the weekend, asking if everyone was okay and when they planned to arrive. The silence was deafening. I spent the entire weekend alone in that beautiful beach house, surrounded by enough food for 10 people and decorations that now felt like a cruel joke. I watched the sunset from the deck both nights, trying to convince myself there had to be some reasonable explanation. Maybe there was a family emergency I didn't know about. Maybe they'd all gotten their dates mixed up. But deep down, I knew the truth was much simpler and much more painful. Sunday evening, I packed everything up and drove home in a fog of hurt and confusion. I'd never felt so invisible, so utterly forgotten by the people who were supposed to matter most. The 2-hour drive gave me plenty of time to replay every interaction from the past few weeks, searching for clues I'd missed. Tuesday morning, while scrolling through social media during my lunch break, I saw it. My brother had posted a series of photos with the caption that would change everything: "Family weekend vibes." The images showed him, his wife, my sister, her boyfriend, and my parents all lounging on a different beach, clearly having the time of their lives. They were barbecuing, playing volleyball, and laughing in the golden hour sunlight. They'd planned their own beach weekend just 2 hours away from where I'd been sitting alone. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't an accident or a miscommunication. They had deliberately chosen to exclude me while I was waiting for them in an empty beach house. The photos were time-stamped from the exact weekend of my birthday celebration. They'd all known exactly what they were doing. I stared at those photos for a long time, feeling something fundamental shift inside me. The hurt was still there, raw and burning, but it was being overtaken by something else entirely. A cold, calculating anger that I'd never experienced before. They'd wanted to send me a message, and I'd received it loud and clear. That afternoon, I began making phone calls. For the past 3 years, I'd been quietly supporting my family in ways they'd grown to take for granted. When my father's construction business had struggled during the economic downturn, I'd co-signed a substantial business loan that kept him afloat. When my mother had insisted she needed a luxury SUV for her real estate work, I'd taken over the lease payments when their finances got tight. Most significantly, when my parents had nearly lost their house 2 years ago, I'd quietly started covering their mortgage payments, telling them it was just temporary help until they got back on their feet. None of it had ever been temporary. I'd been paying for their lives while they treated me like an afterthought. The bank representative was surprisingly helpful when I explained that I wanted to stop all automatic payments immediately. She walked me through the process of removing myself from the various accounts and loans. For the business loan, Since I was a co-signer, I couldn't simply walk away, but I could stop making the payments I'd been covering. The mortgage and car payments were easier since I'd been making them voluntarily. By Thursday evening, I'd systematically dismantled the financial safety net I'd provided for my family. Every automatic transfer was canceled. Every payment arrangement was terminated. I felt a strange sense of liberation as I watched the last transaction process. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. I simply stopped. Friday came and went without incident. Over the weekend, I found myself checking my phone obsessively, wondering when the first shoe would drop. It didn't take long. Monday morning, my mother called in a panic. Her car payment had been declined, and the dealership was threatening repossession. She asked if there had been some kind of mistake with my account, since the payment had always come through before. I told her I wasn't sure what had happened and suggested she contact her bank. Tuesday brought a similar call from my father. The mortgage company had left a voicemail about a missed payment, and he was confused because he thought I'd been handling it. I expressed surprise and said I'd look into it, knowing full well I wouldn't. Wednesday evening, my phone rang with my brother's number. He was calling on behalf of my father, who was apparently too proud to ask directly. The business loan payment had bounced, and they were facing serious consequences if it wasn't resolved immediately. My brother asked if I could cover it just this once while they figured out what was going wrong with their finances. I told him I was having my own money troubles and couldn't help right now. The panic in their voices was obvious now. Over the next few days, I received increasingly desperate calls and messages. My sister called crying, saying she didn't understand why everything was falling apart at once. My mother left voicemails explaining how important her car was for showing houses to clients. My father, swallowing his pride, called to ask if we could meet for lunch to discuss some temporary financial assistance. I remained politely unhelpful to all of them. Thursday evening, exactly 1 week after I'd canceled the payments, my father sent a text that simply read, "Did something happen?" I stared at that message for a long time before responding. Part of me wanted to unleash everything I was feeling, to explain in detail how much their deliberate exclusion had hurt me. But I realized that would give them an opportunity to explain it away, to minimize what they'd done, or to turn themselves into the victims somehow. Instead, I typed back, "Yeah, I finally took the hint." The response was immediate. My phone started ringing within seconds. I declined the call and put my phone on silent. Over the next hour, my phone lit up with increasingly frantic messages. My father demanded to know what I meant. My mother insisted there had been some kind of misunderstanding. My brother and sister both sent long texts trying to piece together what had gone wrong. I didn't respond to any of them. Update 1. The weekend brought a family summit of sorts. My brother showed up at my apartment unannounced on Saturday morning, looking haggard and desperate. He pushed his way inside and immediately started talking about how the family was falling apart and how I needed to explain what was happening. I made him coffee and listened as he laid out the full scope of their financial crisis. Without my support, my parents were facing foreclosure within 30 days. My mother would lose her car by the end of the week, effectively ending her real estate career. The business loan default would destroy my father's credit and potentially force him into bankruptcy. He begged me to tell him what he could do to fix whatever had gone wrong. I pulled up the photos from his beach weekend on my phone and set it on the coffee table between us. I watched his face change as he realized what he was looking at. The color drained from his cheeks as he understood the connection between those photos and the current crisis. He tried to explain that the beach trip had been a last-minute thing, that his wife had surprised him with the rental, that he'd tried to call me but couldn't reach me. Each excuse sounded weaker than the last, and we both knew it. I asked him why no one had thought to invite me to their spontaneous family gathering. Why no one had wondered where I was or bothered to check on me during my birthday weekend. Why it had taken a financial crisis for anyone in the family to realize I existed. He couldn't answer any of those questions. That afternoon, my parents arrived together. My mother cried as she apologized for missing my birthday, claiming she'd gotten confused about the dates. My father was more direct, asking what it would take to get things back to normal. He offered to pay me back everything I'd contributed over the years, even though we both knew he didn't have that kind of money. I told them both that I wasn't angry about the money. The money had always been freely given. I was angry about being treated like I didn't matter, about being excluded from my own family, while I was quietly keeping their lives together. My mother insisted that I was overreacting, that family sometimes had miscommunications, that this could all be worked out with better planning in the future. She suggested we set up a family calendar to make sure nothing like this happened again. I realized she still didn't understand what she'd done wrong. Update 2. Sunday brought my sister and her boyfriend to my door. She was crying before I even let them inside, apologizing repeatedly for missing my birthday. She claimed she'd been dealing with work stress and had completely forgotten about the beach house until she saw my brother's photos. Her boyfriend stayed quiet while she explained how guilty she felt, how she'd been meaning to reach out all week but didn't know what to say. She promised it would never happen again and begged me to reconsider helping the family through this rough patch. I asked her if she'd enjoyed the other beach weekend, if the volleyball game had been fun, if the sunset dinner had been as beautiful as it looked in the photos. She couldn't meet my eyes as she admitted that the alternative beach trip had been planned for weeks. Everyone had known about both events. They'd simply chosen the one that didn't include me. When I asked her why, she broke down completely. Through her tears, she confessed that my brother's wife had organized the alternative weekend specifically because she found my beach house rental too fancy and too expensive. She'd convinced everyone that I was showing off and trying to make them feel bad about their own financial situations. The irony was staggering. They'd rejected my generosity because they thought I was flaunting my wealth, all while I was secretly paying for their basic living expenses. I told my sister that I'd spent 3 years quietly supporting this family, asking for nothing in return except to be treated with basic respect and consideration. I'd been repaid with deliberate exclusion and casual cruelty. She begged me to give them another chance, to let them prove they could do better. She promised that things would change, that they'd all make more effort to include me and appreciate what I'd done for them. I told her that some things couldn't be undone. Trust, once broken this completely, couldn't be rebuilt with promises and good intentions. Monday morning brought news that my father's business was officially in default. The bank had frozen his accounts and was beginning seizure procedures for his equipment. My mother's car had been repossessed over the weekend. They had 10 days to bring the mortgage current or face foreclosure proceedings. My brother called that evening, his voice completely defeated. He asked if there was any amount of money that would fix this, any gesture of remorse that would change my mind. He offered to pay for a make-up birthday celebration, to organize a family vacation where I could plan everything exactly how I wanted it. I told him that he still didn't understand the problem. This wasn't about money or parties or vacations. This was about being valued as a person, not just as a financial resource. Update 3. Tuesday brought an intervention of sorts. My entire family showed up at my workplace during my lunch break, cornering me in the parking lot with desperate pleas and increasingly creative solutions. My father offered to sign over half of his business to me if I'd save it from bankruptcy. My mother promised to quit real estate and get a regular job to pay me back. My brother and sister both offered to take out personal loans to cover some of the immediate expenses. None of them seemed to grasp that I didn't want their money or their business or their desperate promises. I wanted basic human decency, and that wasn't something they could pay back or negotiate. I told them all that I was done being their safety net, done being taken for granted, done being excluded from the family I'd been supporting. I'd learned my worth from their actions, and I was finally acting accordingly. My brother's wife, who had been quiet until this point, finally spoke up. She accused me of being petty and vindictive, of destroying innocent people's lives over a simple misunderstanding about party dates. She said I was proving exactly why they hadn't wanted me at their beach weekend in the first place. That admission hung in the air like a physical presence. Even my own family looked shocked at her honesty. I thanked her for finally telling the truth. I told them all that they'd made their feelings about me perfectly clear, and I was simply responding in kind. They'd shown me exactly how much I mattered to them, and I was returning the favor. I walked back into my office and blocked all their numbers. 3 weeks later, I heard through a mutual friend that my parents had lost the house and were staying with my brother temporarily. My father's business had been liquidated to pay creditors. My mother was working part-time at a department store. I felt neither satisfaction nor regret. I felt nothing at all. The friend asked if I planned to reconcile with my family eventually, if this was all just a temporary punishment that would blow over with time. I realized that I didn't miss any of them. I'd been grieving the loss of a family that had never actually existed. The people I'd been supporting and loving and prioritizing had never felt the same way about me. I'd been a convenient resource, not a cherished family member. For the first time in years, I was financially stable without the drain of supporting 4 other adults. I was emotionally peaceful without the constant disappointment of being undervalued. I was free to build relationships with people who actually wanted me around. That evening, I booked another beach house rental for the following weekend. This time, I invited friends who had proven their loyalty over the years. People who remembered my birthday without being reminded, who included me in their plans, who treated me like I mattered. As I sent out those invitations, I realized that family wasn't just about blood relations. It was about people who chose to love and support each other consistently, not just when it was convenient or profitable. I'd finally learned the difference, and it had set me free. The beach house photos I posted that weekend showed genuine smiles and authentic laughter. No one was performing for the camera or trying to send hidden messages. We were just people who enjoyed each other's company, celebrating life together. In the comments, someone asked if my family would be joining us next time. I simply replied that these were my family now.